Good afternoon. Welcome to the FMA Nightly News. My name is Scott Johnson and this is my co-anchor, Adam Bushman. Disturbing news statistics show us that the flare has infected more than 45% of the United States, causing people to grow terrible rashes and burns on their skin from overexposure to the sun. For more on the effects of this disease, we go to Jeffrey. Jeffrey?
Thanks, Jeffrey. In other news, the winter marathon training is in full swing. Amongst our newest participants, veteran runners will reappear, including Minho of the Glade. He will be defending his title as the best runner and has high hopes for this year. We now go to Jeffrey, who is out in the field.
There goes Minho. There he goes. Back to you.
One of our biggest stories progresses is we have uncovered a hidden facility that has been running illegal tests on teenagers to find a cure for the flare. Tonight, we will be interviewing a very special guest. A young boy by the name of Thomas has been through thick and thin and is here to provide us with some insight on the story. Our reporter Peter Doyle is offsite with him.
Hi, my name is Peter Doyle, and I'm here with an amazing young man by the name of Thomas. So Thomas, bring us back to the beginning of your memories at the maze. What's the first thing you remember?
Well, I woke up in a big dark elevator that was bringing me up to the maze. I could remember everything that I ever learned, but I couldn't remember how, where, or when I learned it. It was as if all personal memories were wiped away, including any memories of my former friends or family.
So you don't remember your family?
No, I don't even remember my real name. Only the name that the creators gave me.
So I'm told the place where you lived, your safe house rather, was called the Glade. Tell me about that.
Basically, it was a farm set directly in the center of a giant maze. It had massive, unscalable walls that closed up every night to protect the gladers from the evil creatures out in the maze. The Grievers.
Grievers? What are Grievers?
Oh, they were hideous creatures. They were like giant black slugs with onyx-colored spikes, just protruding from their disgusting bodies. Claws and any other number of vicious appendages would just clack against the floors of the stone corridors as they would roll by. It makes me sick just to think about it. What you really had to worry about, though, is getting stung.
Stunned? What do you mean by that?
Well, you see, if you were the unlucky shuck that was pricked by one of those monsters, you had a few hours to be given the grief serum after you got stung. Otherwise, you're dead. The grief serum made you go berserk for a couple of days, giving you a bunch of unpleasant memories from your past. It's not fun to get or to watch.
So how did you guys get out of the maze?
Well, the runners had been through the maze a lot and mapped it all out, but we still couldn't find any exits. One time, Minho and I got caught out in the maze, and some grievers were chasing us. We got to this cliff, and the grievers fell off of it, but they didn't hit the ground. They disappeared. We started throwing rocks at this area and found that there was an invisible door or something. I don't know what it was, leading to who knows what. We called it the Griever Hole. Then Teresa, who had been in a coma since she came to the maze, the first girl, woke up. She told me that she had triggered the ending and that the maze was a code. At first, no one knew what to do. When she woke up, the wall stopped closing overnight, and the grievers could come in at night. The sky no longer had a natural look to it, and now looked like a ceiling. All the gladers went into panic. Eventually, we were able to look at the maps and found out that they had hidden letters that spelled out the words float, catch, bleed, death, stiff, and push. So we had the code, but we didn't know what to do next. Then Gally said that the grievers would take one guy a day. So he ran out, and sure enough, they grabbed him and left. I eventually realized that I needed the memories that the grief serum gave people, so I ran after a griever and purposely got stung. After the whole ordeal of the serum, I knew what we needed to do. I found out that before the memory wipes, Teresa and I were a part of making the maze. It was a very disturbing memory, but anyways, I knew that we had to distract the grievers and then jump into the Griever Hole, which doubled as a computer room. This computer is where we need to put in the code. The code would shut the grievers off and open up an exit. So we convinced the majority of the Gladers to fight the Grievers, as Teresa, Chuck, and I would go to the Griever hole and punch in the code. After we put in the code, a slide opened up, and we ended up in a laboratory where there were a bunch of scientists. Then, out of nowhere, Gally, who we thought was dead, threw a knife at me. But Chuck jumped in the way, and he got killed. Right in front of me.
Do you need a moment?
No, I think I'll be alright. Anyways, this group of SWAT-like people charged in and grabbed us. They put us on a bus and rushed us out to a secure facility away from all the crazy people affected from the flare. Now, I'm here.
Well, we're all glad you guys made it out alive. Thank you for sharing your amazing story.
Anytime, Peter.
This is Peter Doyle. Back to you, Scott.
Thank you, Peter and Thomas, for that impactful story. Many of you may be wondering what type of person would do something like this to an innocent child and what their background might be like. We now go to Mr. Jasper, who is at the state penitentiary with the mastermind behind it all, James Dashner. Thanks, Scott. I'm here at the state penitentiary with the mastermind behind these disturbing experiments, James Dashner. Mr. Dashner, many of these citizens would like to know what caused you to put these poor kids through all those horrific experiments. Why would you make the maze nearly impossible?
Well, I've always lived with the motto never give up. And I felt that in order to find a cure for the flare, the kids I was experimenting on would need to share the same mentality as I do. Otherwise, this tremendous task would never be accomplished.
That's an interesting way to look at it. So, why would you make the maze look like ancient stone walls?
Well, actually, I'm fascinated by castles. If I ever end up getting out of here, I plan on taking my family on a tour of Europe's castles.
Your family?
Well, yeah. My family's everything to me. My two sons, Wesley and Bryson, are among my greatest accomplishments. My son, Wesley, actually, has been affected by the flare. And I thought if only I could find a cure.
Oh. So, what did you do before your son was affected?
I was an accountant, and I hated it. I actually really enjoy my new line of work, medically, psychologically.
What? You brutally killed those innocent children.
It was for the good of humanity. I don't think it was a bad decision. I mean, I wanted to help out. Think of how many lives I could have saved in comparison. Hey, you think you could order me a pizza?
What? No, I don't think I can do that.
I really love pizza. I'm really gonna miss it. The whole maze thing was actually kind of fun. It was like being the director of a movie. Something I've always wanted to do.
Okay. This has been eye-opening. To better understand the unique mind of James Dashner, check out the written works including The Maze Runner, The Scorched Trials, The Death Cure, and the 13th Reality Series. Thank you for your time, Mr. Dashner. This is Hugh Jasper. Back to you. Thanks, Hugh. Today we'll be having two critics come in to talk to you about the newest novel, The Maze Runner.
The first person that will be speaking is a highly acclaimed critic by the name of Paul A. Talab. Here he is.
Thank you, Adam. My name is Paul A. Talab. The Maze Runner by James Dashner is a well-written science fiction novel. The book is geared toward young adults and takes place in a dystopian setting. The novel emphasizes the themes of friendship, courage, and sacrifice. The central idea has so much potential that the author did not expand. The plot focuses on major mystery unknown to both readers and the characters that James Dashner gives away by constantly giving the reader too much information. The author has been very descriptive. Sometimes, like on page 39, it was too dark to make out clearly, but the odd lights flashed from unknown source, revealing blurs of silver spikes and glistening flesh. This creature was a horrific mix of animal and machine, a griever. The characters were a disappointment. The author barely explains their physical and mental appearance. Their descriptions weren't elaborate enough. Overall, the storyline was very intriguing, and I recommend it to all middle school grades. It is hard to put this book down.
Our next guest we have is another well sought after critic. She goes by the name of Jordan Vogel.
book starts off a little slow, having to introduce the reader into the world of the Gladers, but after the girl arrives, the pace picks up and never slows down. There are parts of this book that will have the reader laughing and others that will leave the reader crying. Dashner does an excellent job of building suspense and attaching the readers to the characters. The Maze Runner is a book that should not be missed.
Thank you for your time, guys. So, Adam, did you get to see that last Minnesota Lynx game?
The who?
That curling team!
No, Jeffrey, it's a basketball.
Were they ever on the front page of the sports section?
I don't think so.
I probably haven't heard of them then.
Oh. Well, they were a really successful team this year, going all the way to...
See what else is on.
Hello, and welcome to the Mr. Dude Show. I'm Mr. Dude, and this is my show. So, a few notes before we get started. I'd just like to shout out to my boys Porky and Beandim. You guys are awesome. Also, if you haven't tried the new chalupa from Don's Taco Shop, you should go get one, because it's prime, dude. Anyway, I'm going to be talking about this book that my teacher made me read. It's called, The Maze Runner, by this dude named James Dashner. Upon analyzing this book, it's become clear that the primary message or theme in this novel is that one should never give up. I feel that the message is very important in society today because the man is always knocking you down. Get a job, move out of my basement, you know? Not even just me, but even mature adults face problems in society similar to the problems faced by our main character, Thomas. The book shows that with determination, one dude can make a huge difference and do what may be considered impossible. Many times in the book, Thomas was faced with struggles, like the time when he was caught out in the maze. Minho deserted him and left Albie for dead. If it wasn't for T-Man's tenacity, Albie would have kicked the bucket right then and there. This shows that one person can make a huge difference and that the conflict between our desire to live and our human frailty can be overcome with determination and drive.
Lenny! The pizza rolls are ready!
Anyways, I completely agree with the message of this book, because without determination and our willingness to work together, our existence wouldn't even be like existing. Yeah. You teachers out there should make your students read this, because even though I was like, yeah, right, I'm glad I eventually did it. And if all you teachers don't assign it, well, then all you dudes out there should read it anyway. Because if we all understood what the Dashner is trying to get across, well, we can make a difference. As for me, I have some pizza rolls to battle with. Catch up with you tomorrow. Later.
Oh, I love cooking shows.
Good evening and welcome to Lessons with Master Chefs. Today we will be making a recipe from my action and adventure collection. This type of recipe relies more on the action sequences by using a wild blend of flavors to let your tongue in on the action. Also, you need to be adventurous to try one of these recipes. Speaking of action and adventure, I read this jolly good book called The Maze Runner. This book is organized just like every other romance novel. The character is completely good and has uncertain parentage. Thomas has a wise teacher named Minho, and they're engaged in terrible struggles. And of course, Thomas prevails in the end of the book. The words in the book are not chosen all that carefully. Whoa! Make sure the oven is turned to 375 degrees! There we are! It seemed that with my high intellectual reading skills, that the writing style insulted my intelligence. I believe it was made much more on the action and adventure aspects instead of painting a picture of the settings and the characters. An example of this is on page 124. 12 jointed legs ran along the length of its bottom, spread out, making the thing look like a sleeping lizard. Also, I found it myself very difficult to picture the grievers, who are the embodiment of who the players are trying to defeat. One of the only descriptions of these monsters is on page 126, where the author describes them as being part animal, part machine. The griever rolled and clicked along the stone pathway. It had no distinguishable head or tail, but from front to end it was at least 6 feet long and 4 feet thick. This obviously does not provide an accurate picture of the griever to the reader. Overall, it was a great read, but as far as discussions go, it would be more suitable for a middle school English class. Let's check out how our wonderful Deezy's doing. Oh dear, that's a dishwasher.
Let's catch the end of the news. And the thumb was never found. Shame, isn't it, Scott?
Yes it is, Adam. Thank you for everyone who has tuned in for the FMA Nightly News. I'm Scott Johnson.
And I'm Adam Bushman.
Stay classy, Miss Romo's class.
Thank you, Peter and Thomas, for that impactful story. Today, we'll be having two critics come Go away! Just go away! Come on! Okay, go away! Just stay back there. I can do this. That grew so much better before you got here. Okay,
Stay
go
back.
away!
Get out of here!
Okay. Just pause it. Thank you. Just pause it. I didn't know you were Oh my god.
Because the reading level was low, it was lacking literary techniques that would have been further used to enrich the book, much like peanut butter enriches our dish. The writing was mediocre to say the least. I messed up and the peanut butter is in the eggs. The main character is completely good and has uncertain parentage. Thomas, the main character. Actually, I was an accountant, and I hated it. Probably one of my biggest regrets. I enjoy my new line of work. Psychologically, medically, doctologically. There it goes. Back to you. You gotta keep taping one of these though. I'm just gonna come on. Wait. Let's just do it over and over again until it gets angry.